Hi, it's Susan from Susan B. Cards. Today I'm going to show you how I make a background using some aqua pigments by Brutus Monroe. I'm using blue, violet, and Dorothy, which is a light blue with some mica in it, and that's why I'm shaking it up, just to get the mica all mixed in. And I just put drops on my mat. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of distressed watercolor paper that I cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I just start dipping and pulling my paper until I get some coverage. So I just keep misting the paper, trying to get some of the ink to move around, trying to get the white areas covered with some of the ink. And then in between, I dry it. So I'm not going to show you all the drying because that's just me moving the heating tool around. But I'm just going to go ahead and add some more ink. Same colors, just little dots of color on my mat. And then I'm going to spritz and then dip my paper again. And I just take a look to see which areas need more ink. If there's big pools of color, I try to break that up with some water. And you can see the layers are starting to build up. And it may not look good at first. But the more you spritz and dry and then re-ink the paper, you'll start seeing the pretty layers. So you can see there's still some areas that are white. So if you put a little bit of water in those areas and then drag the ink through it, you'll start getting the coverage. I really don't want too much white area, but I also don't want it to be 100% covered. So once again, I mist the paper and I start dipping it in and dragging it through the ink. And you can see just layers and some areas that look like waves are going through it, and then dots. It's really important to keep drying the paper in between so that you can keep those interesting layers. Next, I'm taking some chroma mist from Brutus Monroe in Blue Glow, and then that has a little bit of iridescent shine to it as well, and I just thought it'd be kind of pretty to add that. Now again, I'm just misting the paper so that I can break up some of that and mix the color around, and then I'm going to dry it again. So as you can see, I do this several times, and if you want to skip ahead, you can, and you could see when I start putting the finishing glaze on at the end. But I just think it's important to see how many layers of color it takes to get these beautiful backgrounds. You can't expect it to get done in one dip and swipe. So I have to do this several times. I didn't cut any of that footage out, and I didn't speed any of it up. The only thing that I cut out was the drying. So I added a little bit more of the violet just to add a little dimension there. I want this to look like an icy cold background. So it looks like I'm just about done. I'm just adding a few of the dots, just trying to use up all the ink that's on my mat. Just clean it up a little bit. I think it looks pretty good. I'm done dipping, so I thought I'd add a few splatters. I'm taking a little bit of the Brutus Monroe Aqua Pigment in white. I'm just adding a tiny bit to my block and using a small brush, just flicking it on. Then again, drying it. Next, I'm applying the Brutus Monroe Finishing Glaze in Gloss, and I'm using a craft scraper to apply it in a thin coat. But you want to be sure that it has complete coverage on the panel, because that's what's going to help the DecoFoil transfer sheet stick to the project. So I'm just applying it in two directions, just to be sure that I don't really have any missed areas, and then I have complete coverage, but also I don't want too many streaks or lines. So you can see that it's shiny and it's a little bit white. When it dries, it'll be clear. I let it dry for several hours, and then I take the Deco Foil by Brutus Monroe in Magical Shattered Glass. And I put it over the project, and you want to be sure that it's all flat. And I use a piece of copy paper to hold it. And I feed it through my laminator. You can also use the ink machine if you have that, but I just have this old laminator that works perfectly fine. It's by Royal Sovereign. So it does seem like it's going pretty slow, but I actually sped this up 50%. And it just takes a couple minutes for it to go through. You let it cool off just a few seconds, and then you carefully pull off cellophane, and it should leave the shattered glass iridescent Deco Foil on the panel. Next, I'm taking my embossing folder. This one is by Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to put some of this manganese blue archival ink on the inside of the folder, just a little bit in the center of some of the snowflakes. It'll add a little bit of definition after I emboss the panel. I'm putting just a little bit here and there, and this is really optional. So here's what the panels look like when they're done. I think the blue just adds a little bit of definition to the snowflakes without covering the panel. After I embossed the folder and mounted it on this iridescent cardstock, I took a small piece of the same iridescent cardstock. This embossing folder comes with a die that cuts out a snowflake. So you cut out the snowflake shape, and then you take the embossing folder and you can put that shape into the folder, run it through the Big Shot, and then you'll end up with a dimensional snowflake. So this one I cut out of the iridescent paper, and then I just glued it on with regular glue. I use this Artiste glue from Scrapbookcom. So I'll put on a sentiment, and then that'll be my finished card. So thank you for watching. If you like the video, please be sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment. Until next time, thanks.